Welcome to Chapter 3 of Wounds of Ash, Book 1 of the Vendi Chronicles. Chapter 3. The cold mountain air stung as it whipped through the Vendis. Tall trees covered in snow bent and swayed from the force. Josen stared numbly as his friend dismounted his large stallion and investigated the prints they had been tracking. Prints left in the hard, packed snow from a similar horse and the nightmarish companions it traveled with. They were here no more than a few days ago, Kano yelled, trying to be heard above the howling wind. Josen did not know if his friend was using his skills honed as a tracker or his magical ability to ascertain things others might not. Either way, he was appreciative of his friend's assessment. If we push on through the rest of the day, we will be able to make it to Fjorden by sunset. Kano rubbed his arms against the cold as he looked up at the sky. Dark clouds threatened snow, and even the most experienced traveler would not want to be caught in a snowstorm in the Vendis. They seemed to be heading in the same direction as the town. I would rather sleep in a warm bed instead of our tents if we had the chance. Kano glanced toward Josen, who only ground his teeth and gripped his reins tighter. Calm. He needed to remain calm. It was not Kano's fault he was on edge. No, it was the hunt that made him sigh in frustration. They had gotten close many times to catching up to the murderous traitor they sought. However, the traitor was always 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, finding ways to leave false trails or slipping away into hidden passes not marked on any map. No, it was not Kano's fault at all. If anything, it was Josen's. If I had not gone on that assignment, if I hadn't left her alone. No, it would do no good to go down that path. Those thoughts never led to anything but heartache and pain. He would not think of her today. He nodded to Kano, who he realized was waiting for a response. He did not miss the look of pity Kano gave him. That was nothing new. Relief ran through him when Kano remounted his horse and led the way to Fjorden. Aside from the snow, the town was exactly how Josen remembered it from the last time they had traveled through here. That had been on an assignment to help settle a land dispute between the town of Fjorden and Holst. It seemed a lot of assignments the Ringada, the magical protectors of Myral, were sent on lately had been about land disputes. Ringada of legend had fought mighty battles against the dark evils of the world. As the protectors of light and truth, it was their duty to fight against the dark. After the last great war, those evils had crawled back into whatever hole they had originated from, and had not been seen since, or at least that was true until a year prior. In the centuries since the Great War, the Ringada, with their once mighty armies, had become nothing more than a martial government, with a high protector at the ruling head. However, the one they had trusted to be the final stand against the darkness had now joined it. Darkness had crept back into the world, and Kano stopped his horse in front of the town inn's stables. Josen jerked and forced himself to become alert to the world around him as a red-faced man in a thick coat of matted fur rushed out to take their horses. His face lit up when he saw the giant horses and the riders astride them. "Masters Ringada! What a joy to stable horses as fine as yours! They will be well taken care of and warm despite the weather." The man looked up at the flurries that were starting to fall. "Please see they are indeed kept warm," Kano said, throwing the man a silver piece for his trouble. "Why, Master Ringada, you are too kind!" He gave a little bow as he pocketed the money and led their 2 horses into the stable. Josen's horse, Ember, tossed her ebony head in frustration and turned to stare at him with dark brown eyes. He tried to give her a reassuring smile. "You coming, Jos?" Kano prodded at his side. The snow was starting to come down harder, and Josen had not realized he had been staring at the stables. Time seemed to flow differently since that fateful day, and Josen was unaware of the minutes that passed. The horses had been taken in a while ago. He shook his head and looked at Kano. "Give me a few moments, Kai." It hurt to talk. How long had it been since he had made it through a full conversation with Kano? He knew he should follow his friend into the warm, inviting building, settle down at a table, and play cards as they once had to pass the time. The part of him that had once enjoyed those things was gone, burned to ashes like her cold, limp body. Not today, he thought, stopping the memories from coming to the forefront of his mind. Not today. Swirls of snow entered the room with him. What began as a snowstorm had turned into a blizzard. From the looks fellow patrons were giving him, he knew he must be a remarkable sight. Snow crusted his cloak and coated his eyelashes, hair, and beard. It did not bother him. There was no need to fear hypothermia when your fire magic kept your body at a continuous temperature. Kano sat at a booth, flirting with a serving girl. She was pretty, with blonde hair pulled back into a braid and a smile that reached her eyes. It was not the first time Josen had found Kano in similar situations. His friend had a reputation. But did it have to be this woman? She looked so much like... No, don't think her name. Don't imagine her. You don't deserve to remember her. But he did. He remembered the way her eyes would twinkle at him as she smiled at a funny joke he shared. He remembered the way she felt in his arms as he held her on their wedding day. He had never been so lucky. And yet, luck wore off. Those moments were all that he was left with. "This is my brother Josen," Kano said, motioning toward Josen with a lazy hand. The serving girl blushed as she nodded to him. "Hello!" Her voice was too bubbly for Josen, and he inwardly cringed. She never would have sounded like that. Josen nodded toward the serving girl and then glared at his friend, his brother. They were not really brothers. That was a term used by the Ringada. However, Josen and Kano did look an awful lot alike, with their black hair and tan skin. They had even developed some of the same mannerisms, having been friends for over 20 years. But where Kano's brown eyes flecked with gold always shone with mirth, Josen's green gold-flecked eyes were stern. He had been open once, even friendly. That time had long since passed. "Can I get you anything?" The serving girl turned her attention toward Josen as if she were appraising him. He hated the attention that came from being a member of the Ringada, and he hated how Kano always used it to his advantage. Mead, dinner, and then to be left alone. He threw some coins down towards her, his voice harsher than intended. "Really, Jose?" Kano threw him a glare before pinching the bridge of his nose. "Just because you choose not to be happy doesn't mean I have to be miserable." Josen snorted but said nothing as the woman came back with a mug of ale and a bowl of stew. She slammed the items down in front of him and stormed off. He eyed her before taking a bite of the stew. It was not the most delicious meal he'd ever eaten, but it was better than whatever he and Kano would have been able to scrounge up in the snow. They ate in silence, neither one wanting to talk to the other. Anger rolled off Kano in waves, but Josen didn't care. He couldn't care. Caring would mean acknowledging something he did not want to admit to himself. Finishing the stew, he stood up from the table, grabbed his pack, and left without a word. Kano did not bother to look up at him as he left. The room reserved for Ringada contained 2 beds. Josen took the one farthest from the door. Let Kano have less room to travel when he comes in wasted, he thought with a sigh as he unlaced his boots and laid back on the lumpy bed. Despite how he acted at dinner, he did care about his friend. A part of him felt immense guilt at how he had been treating Kano. He would not have gotten this far without him. Just because you choose not to be happy doesn't mean I have to be miserable. Those words plagued him. Kano was right. It was not fair of Josen to force his own grief and misery onto his friend. To expect him to grieve the same way was not fair. He had not loved her, had not known what it was like to lose the one good thing in his world. Kano lost a friend, but he had only come with Josen on this insane hunt because he had worried Josen would need him. Tomorrow, he would try harder to show how much he appreciated his friend's loyalty. Maybe next time they stopped in an inn, he would not chase away his friend's chance at an enjoyable time. Kano is right. I am miserable. With Kano's words replaying in his mind, Josen turned over and covered himself with the thin blankets. Tonight would be bad. He was exhausted and knew that there was no fighting the images that would come to him the instant sleep took over. Kano watched his friend retreat up the stairs. Oh, Josen, he thought. He remembered a time when they would stay up late playing cards or talking. He missed that friend and his easygoing camaraderie, but most importantly, he missed the light-hearted Josen, the friend who would laugh at Kano's jokes and crack them back. Others might only know Josen as the son of the High Protector, but Kano knew Josen better than that. He knew Josen was hurting, and he wished for all the world he could make it better.